Hello, everybody. DF here, and welcome to Beauties and Beasts, the podcast for all things Beauty and the Beast. So happy February, everybody. Not only the month of love, but Black History Month. The month where we honor the struggle for equality of African Americans in the United States and, well, frankly, people of African descent everywhere. And let me just say, as a white person, that race is no reason to treat anybody differently, as Beauty and the Beast teaches us. And what better way to celebrate this month of Black history than by discussing the first Black Disney princess, Tiana, from the 2009 film, The Princess and the Frog. Okay, before I go into this, I'd like to thank my $5 plus patrons, Anime Guy 1101, Satu-Hana, and TyrannosaurusVenom. Thank you for your continuing support. If you'd like to support my podcast, make a pledge now of at least $1 a month by clicking the green button in the right-hand corner of the screen if you're listening on Podbean, or if you're listening on YouTube, follow the link in the description below. Patron rewards include early access to episodes, attendance of live recordings, this one's being recorded live right now for patrons, and also complimentary gifts. Another way you can support this podcast is by buying my Beauties and Beasts merchandise on Redbubble. I now have 2 new product designs available. One of them based on Cinderella. It has the image of a glass slipper and showing the slogan, "I love her for her feet." And another design based on the Frog Prince, which we'll be talking about today, shows an image of a frog and the slogan, "There are better ways to get a date." You can find links to these products on Redbubble in the description below, on Podbean, and on YouTube. Okay, I just want to announce some of the changes in my goals for the patron pledges. Okay, good news is all my student loans from college have been paid off. Yay! So that goal is out of the way now. And I could not have done it without patron support to pay off for podcast expenses, which allowed me more room to save for my loans. The bad news... another one of my long-term goals was to fix my external hard drive, which had broken, and unfortunately it's beyond repair and none of the data that was on there can be saved. So the money that has been saved up from the podcast will be used to buy a replacement drive at least, so that I can protect the data that I do have on my computer right now, and maybe a protective case for it. So what else is there left to save up for? Well, there's a matter of soundproofing, and I'm trying to decide on the right sound shield, and I'm welcome to suggestions. People have suggested that I get materials to build one, or if there are any foam sound shields that you think I could get on Amazon or somewhere, I'm welcome to suggestions. I'm trying to find the right one that would be good for my Blue Yeti mic here. And also, another thing I'm saving up for, my friends from the Brony fandom, Magpie Pony and the Lost Narrator, are getting married. You may remember them from the episode where we talked about Disney. And the wedding's not till next year, which will give me time to save up for travel and hotel costs. My goal is to try to get $300 in pledges a month to help save up for this. And also, in the long term, I want to be able to cover basic expenses. I mean, I'm an artist in audio and in writing. I need to eat, I need to pay for gas, and there's also my car and cat insurance. Yes, I have insurance for my cat because I love her very much. And not to mention, I will have to start finding new medical insurance in a few short years, as the ones my parents got me when I was a child will expire soon. And I hope to get $500 a month in pledges to help cover all this, and plus also covering production costs. And, in the very, very long term, moving out. And based on my calculations for the down payment, and then the future monthly rent, and the furniture moving, I'm aiming for about $2,000 a month. I know, real long term, huh? And once all these costs are taken care of, this will allow me more time for creative projects. Not just in this podcast, but in this novel I'm writing. It's a children's fantasy, that's all I'm going to say right now. Okay, enough advertising, let's get to the analyzing. So, before we talk about Disney's The Princess and the Frog, I want to talk about its 2 sources, which are very different from the movie. The first is, of course, the Grimm Brothers fairy tale, The Frog King, also known as The Frog Prince, and E.D. Baker's 2002 novel, The Frog Princess, which, by the way, was the original title for the Disney movie, but more on that later. Okay, so the Grimm Brothers fairy tale was written in 1812, and you think you may know this. I mean, everybody knows the story of the Frog Prince. The princess kisses a frog, and he turns into a handsome prince and they live happily ever after, right? Wrongo! Let me tell you what really happened in that fairy tale. It's been changed significantly over the years. So, there's this king who has some daughters, and his youngest daughter is the most beautiful, but she's also really spoiled. And kind of bratty. She's kind of like the opposite of Belle from Beaumont's fairy tale, Beauty and the Beast. You know, she is the youngest and most beautiful, but she's not as good-hearted and kind as Belle. And one day the princess is out playing with her golden ball, but then that ball falls into a well and she cries. And then this frog comes along, who can apparently talk, offers to help to get her ball back, and in return, he wants to be her companion. Now, she's disgusted by the frog, but agrees to his terms, but leaves him in the well after he gets her ball back. Like, haha, sucker! But, you know, a promise is a promise, and the frog comes to the castle to collect. And the king, after hearing the story from his daughter, says that, well, you made a promise to him, you must keep it. And so the frog is invited into the castle, he eats with the princess at her table, and then asks to sleep in her bed. Oh boy. And, of course, she's really disgusted and doesn't want to sleep in bed with a frog, and says, no, I'm not going to let you sleep with me. And the frog says, do it, or I'll tell your father. Sheesh, manipulative much? And this makes the princess furious, so she picks up the frog and throws him against the wall, and then he turns into a prince. Yeah, that's right. It was not a kiss. It was her throwing him against the wall. This will make sense later. And because the prince is all handsome now, she agrees to marry him. Because. And so the prince's servant, Faithful Henry, comes to the castle with a carriage, and the iron bands that were wound around his heart start to break because his young master is finally happy again. Yeah, my classmates, when we read the story, kind of shipped the prince and the servant more than they shipped the prince and the princess. Alright, I know what you're wondering. So why did throwing him against the wall turn him back into a prince? Yeah. Well, it was actually an act of independence from the princess in disobeying her father and breaking her promise to this male frog. You know, she's becoming her own person and not just doing whatever the men are telling her to do. Surprisingly a feminist message for 1812? And really, this story is kind of the closest to Beauty and the Beast that the Grimm's brothers have ever gotten. The frog is slimy and gross, and that is how young girls, like then and now actually, kind of view boys, or rather the act of sex at first. You know, the whole idea of, ew, cuties, blah, boys are gross. But then, over time, boys start becoming attractive, hence, you know, the frog becoming a prince. Or, you know, it could be a princess. Just, you know, this was the 19th century. Obviously, they were going with the heterosexual route. Anyway, this way of the frog transforming doesn't seem very romantic, does it? Yeah, the kiss seems a little weird too, but it's kind of makes more sense than this. I mean, what about the whole true love conquers all thing? I guess that's not really what this story's about. But like Beaumont's Beauty and the Beast, broken promises are rewarded. The princess in The Frog King breaks her promise to the frog, and as a reward, he turns into a prince. And when Belle breaks her promise to the beast by staying with her father longer, well, when she comes back, he turns into a prince. So the morals of both stories are kind of, well, not very clear, are they? Now, if you've seen the Disney movie, you can tell this is not like the Disney movie at all. Like, the only thing they really have in common is that there is a frog and a princess, who's not really a princess at first. Really, if anything, the main plot of the movie was taken more from E.D. Baker's 2002 novel, The Frog Princess. And I will discuss this book and its later sequels in a future episode, because the whole series in itself is really good. You know, it puts its own twist on the fairy tale of the Frog Prince. Well, fairy tales in general. So in this story, I'll just sum it up really quickly. Princess Emma kisses a frog who says that he's a prince under a curse. But in kissing him, she ends up turning into a frog herself. And they spend the whole book in the swamp trying to find the witch to break the spell. You know, but the similarities between the book and the movie kind of end there. Okay, before we get into the summary of the Disney movie, we will hear a quick word from my Dragon Prince patron, Anime Guy 1101.
Hello everyone listening, this is Anime Guy 1101, Here to just say that I've been enjoying DF's podcast so far, and for her opinions and knowledge on Beauty and the Beast stories and other fairy tale topics to come. Also, her various stories she posts online are always a fun and great read anytime that I would gladly recommend to any of her fans of this podcast. So thank you again, DF, for your hard work and for the fun content you make for everyone.
Remember, $15 plus patrons can record a short message on the show or call in as a guest. Alright, now finally, now that I've talked about the preliminary stuff, let's get to Disney. In 2009, after having an Arabian princess, a Native American princess, and an Asian princess, though Mulan is actually really more of a heroine than a princess, but still in the official Disney princess lineup, Disney adds an African American princess to their lineup. And everyone's saying this is long overdue. It probably is, but, give them credit for finding a way to incorporate this. I mean, think about it. Historically, there has never been an African American princess. African, yes, in traditional African societies. American, yes. For example, Pocahontas. African American, no, there's never been an African American princess. That's a totally different ethnicity and nationality than just an African princess. Because of colonialism, there has been no American monarchy, after Native American rule was wiped out, sadly. And through the circumstances of history, the only way an African American, or rather modern Americans in general, whether African or white or, anybody who's American, can be royalty is if they are married into the monarchy of another country. Because America has no monarchy. It would be cool if Disney had decided to delve into traditional African societies more. Future movie perhaps? Not saying ethnic protagonists have to be royalty. But going into the plot of the movie, so Tiana, our African-American heroine, is a waitress in 1920s New Orleans. And her dream is to run a restaurant, as that was her father's dream too, but he passed away before it could happen. It's heavily implied in the movie that he had died in World War I. And her rich white friend Charlotte wants to marry Prince Naveen, who is visiting from Maldonia. And in order to impress him, she hires Tiana to cater her masquerade party, which is enough to put a down payment on the building she wants for her restaurant. And while she's fixing up the place, her mama says, it's a shame you're working so hard, darling. I want you to find your Prince Charming and dance off into your happily ever after. And Tiana's like, Mama, I have no time for dancing. Meanwhile, Prince Naveen, who turns out to be this playboy, carefree womanizer, and I am just getting redundant here. He is dancing around town, and we learn that he has been cut off from his parents' fortune, and the only thing he can do to be rich again is marry a rich heiress or get a job. And in the streets of New Orleans, he and his manservant Lawrence meet Dr. Fassier, also known as the Shadow Man, who is a voodoo witch doctor. Okay, I just want to point out that I've taken a class on African religions in college, and I learned that voodoo is a more correct way of saying it, but in the context of the film, I will be saying the pronunciation they use, voodoo. Okay, and Dr. Fassier, he does this whole cool song, voiced by Keith David, who is awesome, by the way, promising the prince that there is green in his future, but tricks him by turning him into a frog and disguising the servant as the prince so he can marry Charlotte, and he and Fassier can split the fortune. And we learn that Fassier later plans to dispose of Charlotte's father so that he can run this town. Okay, later, at Charlotte's masquerade party, Tiana learns from the realtors that she was outbid on the restaurant. And devastated, she wishes on a star, thinking of no other way she can get the money in time. And the frog appears! I just love that scene, by the way, when she's like, oh, so what now? I suppose you want a kiss? Kissing would be nice, yes? And she just totally freaks out. And because Tiana is dressed up like a princess, Naveen mistakes her for a princess and says, you have to kiss me to turn me back into a human. And, of course, Tiana doesn't want to because, ew, it's a frog. But he says that, I come from a fabulously wealthy family. If I could offer you some type of reward. And Tiana, thinking that he can help her get a restaurant, she kisses him. But instead of him turning into a human, she turns into a frog. Because she was not a princess, and that's why it didn't work. And so the two of them venture into the bayou to find the voodoo priestess Mama Odie, and along the way they meet trumpet-playing gator Louis, named after Louis Armstrong, who wants to be human. Because gators cannot really play in front of humans without them screaming or firing guns at him. And they also meet Firefly Ray, who is in love with the Evening Star, who he calls Evangeline, whom he thinks is a firefly. And Tiana and Naveen start to fall in love along the way, but of course, things getting in the way, like Naveen wanting to be rich again and planning to marry Charlotte, and Tiana wanting her restaurant. And so they meet with Mama Odie, who says that you want to be human, but you're blind to what you need. Which is ironic because she's blind herself. I mean, physically. And she tells them that Charlotte, because she is princess of the Mardi Gras parade, will be able to kiss Naveen and turn him and Tiana both back into human, but only until midnight when Mardi Gras is over. So on the boat back to New Orleans, Naveen tries to propose to Tiana, realizing that he loves her and that he is willing to give up his princely life and work hard to get her a restaurant. But then when she says that she needs the money by tomorrow to get the place she wants, he decides that he must marry Charlotte to get the money to make her dream come true. Have I mentioned that when this movie first came out, I had a huge crush on Naveen? Even as a frog? He's such a sweetheart. And shortly afterwards, Naveen is captured by Facier's shadow minions. So when they get to the New Orleans and the Mardi Gras parade, Ray spills the beans about the ring, and Tiana goes to find Naveen in the Mardi Gras parade, but then she sees the Naveen imposter on a float about to marry Charlotte, and of course, takes things the wrong way. But Ray, thinking that something is up, he finds the real Naveen locked up in a chest, frees him, they steal the amulet for Lawrence's disguise, they run from the shadow minions into the cemetery, and Ray gets injured in the process, and Tiana threatens to break the amulet, and Facier offers to give her her restaurant, showing her flashbacks of her father working too hard, like, you gotta do this for your poor daddy, you're almost there. And then Tiana remembers that her father, he didn't get what he wanted, but he had what he needed, which was the love from his family, and never lost sight of what was really important. And so Tiana, like a boss, breaks the amulet, and because that amulet was pretty much Facier's contract to the voodoo spirits, he is dragged back to hell. What a way to go. Okay, so Naveen finds Charlotte and tells her the whole story, and she's like, okay, so we're gonna have ourselves married and lived happily ever after, the end. Yeah, more or less. But remember, you must give all the money that Tiana requires for her restaurant. Because she is my Evangeline. Oh, I'm sorry. Just, someday I hope somebody says that to me. Okay. So Tiana hears this, and she confesses her love to Naveen, and Charlotte, moved by this, says that she will kiss him for her friend, but turns out they are too late because it is past midnight. Now wait a minute, how is it that, since the kiss doesn't work, Charlotte doesn't turn into a frog? That doesn't make sense. I know it's magic, but magic has some rules, right? And so Tiana and Naveen decide that, well, they're at least gonna stay together as frogs. But then Ray dies, there's a funeral, and then a new star appears in the sky next to Evangeline. Even my friends, when this movie first came out, were all like, aww. So back in the bayou, Mama Odie marries Tiana and Naveen. They kiss. The spell is broken because Tiana, now that she is Naveen's wife, is now a princess. And then they get their restaurant with the help of their new guard gator, Louis. They run it together, with Naveen helping with the mincing and entertainment, and also Louis getting his dream to play his trumpet, and they create a new kind of happily ever after. The end. I gotta say, this has got to be my third favorite Disney movie, after Beauty and the Beast and the Little Mermaid. You know, third favorite movie in general. And I understand it got kind of mixed reviews and critique on the representation of blacks in this movie, or how they went about having a black princess. Okay, I've gotten two perspectives from two different black friends, because I really think they're the best perspectives to look at through this. I mean, from one of them, she loved Tiana so much, you know, liking that there was somebody to represent her in the Disney princess lineup. But on the other hand, from my other black friend, he was saying Tiana spends most of the film as a frog, which is kind of problematic, as for a long time, blacks were treated and portrayed as animalistic. Which might be kind of fair, but then again, don't we also have, like, white characters in Disney who were turned into animals? And, you know, no one really had much of a problem of Cusco turning into a llama, and, well, then again, I'm a privileged white chick, so, hey, what do I know? But I will say that it was for this reason that there was the title change from the Frog Princess to the Princess and the Frog. They didn't want their first black princess to be, described as an animal, the Frog Princess. And there's also kind of critique on the portrayal of African conjuring traditions in this movie. As I've said here, the more appropriate pronunciation for voodoo is vodou. And like I said, I took an African religions class, and we actually watched this again for class. And I will say there are many misconceptions about voodoo, but from this movie, there is actually a lot to unpack. I mean, on one hand, you got Dr. Fassier, who's kind of like the stereotypical representation of African conjuring traditions as the demonic force that hinders the main characters. But we've also got Mama Odie, who's the guiding force. So Disney kind of understands that. There are two different ways that people can use voodoo, through healing means and harmful means. In voodoo itself, the tradition is not really good or evil. And Fassier himself, he actually, visually resembles the Loa or spirit of the dead in voodoo, Baron Samedi, who often appears in cemeteries, which kind of makes sense because his ultimate demise happens in a cemetery. Maybe I should explain voodoo a little bit more. It's a conjuring tradition that was formed as a result of colonialism. When Africans were brought over to the European colonies, they still wanted to honor their traditions, but they had to do them in new ways, and sometimes in secret, and sometimes by syncretizing with the European religions, such as Christianity. But voodoo is specifically derived from the African cultures of Dahomey, Yorubaland, Congo, and Angola. And this developed specifically in the French colonies, such as Louisiana, so the movie's actually geographically correct. Yeah, voodoo, hoodoo, nudu are all in different regions. And there are two main sects of voodoo. One of them is Rada, and this derives more from Bohemian and Yoruba traditions. It's considered the cool side of voodoo, supposed to be for peace and reconciliation. And then there's the Petro, or hot side, and this is derived predominantly from Congolese traditions. It's for healing and for attacking evil forces. Rada is typically about channeling the gods or the spirits, particularly the ones from Dahomey and Yorubaland. And Petro is really more working with charms. And it's really unclear what sect Fassier belongs to. Well, he does use veves, or rather symbols, representing the Yoruba and Bohemian deities, as you can see in Friends on the Other Side. Oh, really? I had to, pause the video just to see how many different veves were there, and really the detail in that movie is brilliant. But, however, he also uses charms, which relates more to Petro. So, I can't really tell what he's supposed to be there. Though it really does seem that Mama Odie is likely to be from the Petro side of voodoo, with her battling against evil forces and how she has her bottles hanging from the giant tree she lives in. Empty bottles hanging from trees are used to capture unwelcome spirits. And there are other details that are in Fassier and Odie that really are references to voodoo culture. Like Fassier has a pact with the Loas. Sometimes voodoo practitioners will make pacts with spirits. And Mama Odie wears white, which in Yoruba land represents good character, and in the Congo represents a spiritual realm. And they each have marks of power, like with Fassier's violet eyes and Mama Odie's blindness, as people who are meant to be future conjurers are born with very unique traits and disabilities. And honestly, I could write a whole book on the subtle references to voodoo. In fact, I wrote a whole essay on it and couldn't even fit it in the maximum page length for class. But I will just say that you could clearly tell Disney did the research. And there are also some other subtle references to African American culture, really more for the struggle of African Americans, especially in the 1920s. Because in this movie, the white characters, especially the rich ones, Charlotte and Big Daddy LaBeouf, they're not openly racist. I mean, Charlotte is Tiana's friend, and Big Daddy LaBeouf has big respect for Tiana and her mother, hiring her mother to do Charlotte's dresses and always coming by the restaurant and talking with them all friendly-like. But Charlotte, while she is a good friend to Tiana, she's kind of ignorant to their income inequality. Charlotte's always complaining about her problems and not getting anything she wished for when, everything's handed to her on a silver platter, but Tiana has to work for her dreams. But Charlotte is not a bad person, per se. When Tiana crashes into the food, and instead of getting mad at her for making a mess, Charlotte helps her get cleaned up and even gives her a new dress. Which kind of makes you wonder why Charlotte just didn't help with the restaurant in the first place. Unless Tiana was maybe too proud to just take money from her friend and go the easy way out. I mean, clearly in the movie, when she does try to go the easy way out, she is turned into a frog. Guess that's a lesson, you gotta work for your dreams. There is one moment where the realtors tell Tiana that she was outbid, and then she's like, you know how long it took me to save that money? And he goes, exactly, which is why a little woman of your background would have had her hands full trying to run a big business like that. This is like honestly, the most racist line in the whole movie, and carries a whole lot of baggage. I mean, it just shows how different a princess Tiana is from all the others. Because she has to work hard to achieve her dreams, because one, she's black, but even harder because she's also a woman in the 1920s. And there's also the thing about Facilier that makes this movie a whole lot deeper than it appears. There's a lot of suggestion that he's maybe a victim of racism and poverty himself. Like this one line he says to Lawrence when trying to convince him to pose as a Naveen. Aren't you tired of living out on the margins when all those fat cats in their fancy cars don't give you so much as a sideways glance? God, the way he says that just makes you wonder what Facilier's backstory was, that maybe he had a hard life as a result of racism and not having enough money, and that conjuring was one way for him to achieve power. And actually, it's not a big stretch. Because historically, conjuring was a way for blacks to achieve power over their circumstances in an oppressive society. I mean, clearly Facilier took more drastic means than Tiana did in trying to overcome oppression. Okay, but African American themes aside, the other reason I love this movie is it's the main reason I love this movie. It's a romantic couple. It's gotta be my favorite Disney couple ever. Yes, I love them even more than Belle and Beast. I'm sorry, but I do. They're probably the closest thing to an egalitarian relationship in a Disney fairy tale film we've ever seen. I mean, think about it. In the end, Tiana and Naveen are running a business together. I mean, Tiana being the main owner and manager, and Naveen running the entertainment and occasionally mincing, showing that there's more to a happy ending than just getting the guy. You know, if you're getting a husband at all. But aside from their ending, what I love is that both characters go through a transformation of some sorts. And not just physically, but personality-wise, which puts a whole twist on the whole Beauty and the Beast thing. You know, Tiana, she starts out as all work and no play, which is not necessarily a bad thing. She wants to achieve her dreams, but at a cost, she never has time for herself or for her friends or for her family for that matter. And Naveen is all play and no work. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with having fun, but he's even saying, like, I had such a charmed life, but when my parents cut me off, I realized I don't know how to do anything. And the two of them, they help each other to find that balance. You know, she teaches him how to mince and he teaches her how to dance. You know, she gets him to learn how to work and care for himself, and he gets her to just every now and then relax a little bit, cut loose. And they just play off each other so well. I just love them. It just shows that relationships are meant to bring out the best in both people. Not saying you should enter a relationship to change a person, but of course, sometimes change is inevitable when you meet somebody, that you may become different as a result of that relationship. Not necessarily a totally different person, but a better version of yourself. And both Tiana and Naveen, they change, and through that change, they become equals in every way possible. You know, personality-wise, and eventually in station. And that's shown in, you know, they start out as frogs, and then they both become human. So Disney, I think you did an excellent take on this fairy tale, because honestly, the original fairy tale is like, what? Okay, so any questions about this? Patrons who are listening right now? Just leave a text in the Skype chat below. And remember, you too can listen to these episodes live by pledging at least $10 a month. You'll have access to the closed Skype group, and you also receive updates in the chat too. Okay, so we have no questions at this moment, but Satu-Hana says that, well, she agrees that Disney made a great interpretation of this fairy tale. Oh, and also, you were also heartbroken about Ray's death. I know, weren't we all? All right, so next month is Women's History Month. And so during that month, I'm going to delve more into the concept of the female beast, which we talked about a few episodes back, with the movie Penelope. Trust me, it's a good movie. You gotta go give it a watch. And if you want to listen to these new episodes early, you can pledge at least $5 a month and you listen to the episode in advance. Alright, so I'll see you next time, and remember, follow your dreams, but don't forget the loved ones along the way. Don't kiss frogs for the wrong reasons. And if a frog asks to sleep in your bed, you have the right to say no, especially if he threatens you. 'Cause that's a no-no. That's a no-no!